Usually, we don't want to discuss serious issues in late afternoon because it's close to dinner time. So we try to be more, easy and try to be even more open to, exchange views on current development of Taiwan's foreign relations and the mainland China policies, solely for your information. Because as you can see from the panelists, we have two scholars from well-known universities in Taiwan and one kind of senior career diplomat, Benjamin, from North American Affairs Department, ROC Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I think this is a kind of combination that can introduce what's happening in Taiwan and Taiwan's future choice in cross-strait relations and foreign relations. Let me begin by some basic introduction to Taiwan's foreign relations and mainland China policy. That is, I'm going to present to you a general picture of Taiwan's goals in these policies. I think the most basic objective of President Ma's foreign and mainland China policies are maybe to maintain peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait, to safeguard Taiwan's survival and the Republic of China's national sovereignty. Also, later on through our introduction, I think you can see the efforts made by President Ma and the government of Taiwan to promote political reconciliation through gradual reduction in tension. That is one of the very important strategies or measures in conflict management. And last, I think one of the major goals of President Ma's foreign and mainland China policies is to promote economic cooperation for the benefits of Taiwanese people, 23 million of Taiwan population. So that's generally speaking the goal, or those are the goals I would like to introduce before I move on to the next section. These goals look not too difficult because I think that's the basic strategic goals for every national government. But in the case of Taiwan, to maintain peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait, to safeguard sovereignty, and to promote political reconciliation and economic cooperation seems a little bit hard because we have a competitor, an arch competitor across the strait, which is the PRC. So that makes the case even more difficult. And Taiwan's mainland China policies actually are based on the two major conditions proposed by President Ma. The first condition is President Ma's three no's statement. He has said that many, many times, publicly or privately, that in his term or in his terms, Taiwan will not be independent. Taiwan will not seek a policy of unification, and Taiwan will not favor the use of force in the Taiwan Strait. If we try to condense what he said in public and private, I think there's three no's: no Taiwan independence, no unification, and no use of force. And he tried to persuade mainland China to accept his position because he thinks this should best meet the needs and benefits of the both sides of the Taiwan Strait. And another condition for President Ma to engage with mainland China is his 1992 consensus, coined by former Secretary General of Taiwan's National Security Council, Dr. Suu Kyi. This consensus, as you can see from the PowerPoint, actually means one China with respective interpretations. That is, with such consensus, can a lot of negotiations or consultations between Taipei and Beijing be conducted? This consensus for some people also means we agree to disagree. So what I would like to urge you to look at the importance of this consensus is that this consensus actually represents the beauty of vagueness in negotiation. If we pull out the veil between Taipei and Beijing, then I think the two sides will see very ugly faces. But the veil, the 1992 consensus between Taipei and Beijing, just prevents the two sides from seeing something ugly, something uncomfortable, and they can choose what they want to see, in a positive way, to engage with each other. And some people say that, okay, one China. So what's one China? According to the definition of the PRC, that's of course the PRC. But according to the Kuomintang, KMT government, one China may mean to the Republic of China. Okay, that's the disagreement we have seen. However, I think if both sides of the Taiwan Strait look at the second part of the consensus, that is respective interpretations, and they tolerate each other's different interpretations as to the definition of one China, then they can sit down and talk. That is why you have seen the resumption of the Jiangchen talk, the quasi-governmental talks between Taipei and Beijing, starting from 2008. And now there have been four rounds of Jiangchen talks. And the fifth round is scheduled for this coming summer, which might touch upon the issue of economic cooperation framework agreement between the both sides, which is very important. I will say something about that later. Okay, so with these two conditions being introduced, I would like to give you several successful cases regarding the improvement in cross-strait relations. For example, Taiwan has opened up the number of mainland Chinese tourists visiting Taiwan. According to the agreement signed by the two sides, up to 3,000 mainland Chinese tourists can come to Taiwan for sightseeing per day. And in the whole year, we are expecting 1 million mainland Chinese tourists to pay visits to Taiwan. That means a quite huge number of foreign income for Taiwanese people. Of course, because some political setbacks, the number of mainland Chinese tourists hasn't reached up to 3,000 per day. But we see a steady number of mainland Chinese visitors to Taiwan every day. And that enhanced the mutual understanding between the two sides of the Taiwan Strait, especially the people-to-people interaction and understanding, which is, to me, a key foundation for future improvements in cross-strait relations. And the second case I can introduce to you is Taiwan's investment towards mainland China. In the past, Taiwan had set up a very high mark restricting Taiwan's investment towards mainland China. But due to the force of globalization, we don't think such a restriction can continue to work. Because if Taiwan tried very hard to exclude itself from this so-called the China-led or China-influenced or China-shaped economy in East Asia, then who's gonna get hurt most? Not China, not Hong Kong, but Taiwan. And some other countries surrounding China, especially say maybe Singapore, South Korea, might feel very happy because their major competitor, Taiwan, has been ruled out from the integration or trade enhancement process with mainland China. So we would like to enhance Taiwan's investment towards mainland China by having some limitation and restrictions on Taiwan's companies. So what I can tell you is that we have restricted the semiconductor sectors to invest in mainland China. And we have asked projects over $50 million to be reviewed by the government individually. Those are some of the restrictions we've imposed on those companies who want to invest in mainland China to protect Taiwan's economic roots and development. And meanwhile, we can see an increasing number of charter and regular flights between the two sides of the Taiwan Strait. And up to now, I think per week there are about 270 charter and regular flights between the two sides of the Taiwan Strait. So in the past, if a person in Taiwan would like to fly to Beijing, he had to fly via, say, Hong Kong, Macau, or Jeju Island, South Korea, or some other airports, not in mainland China. Now we open up the charter and the regular flights so that the flight time between Taipei and Shanghai, for example, is only about 90 minutes. In the past, it would take us about 6 hours in total via Hong Kong, Taipei via Hong Kong to Shanghai. That saves us a lot of time and money, and that facilitates the people-to-people exchanges in both sides of the Taiwan Strait. And also, I would like to mention that ECFA, Economic Cooperation Framework Agreement, which is somewhat an FTA-like agreement between Taipei and Beijing, is being discussed. Because we try to establish several FTA initiatives with our neighboring countries or our major trading partners, but we just failed, mainly because of some political obstacles. And such political obstacles might have come from mainland China. And now the only trading partners of Taiwan who is willing to sign a sort of FTA-like agreement with Taiwan is, ironically, mainland China. So what can Taiwan do now? Because Taiwan has signed 5 or 6 FTAs with its diplomatic allies located in Central America, which represents about 0.15 or 0.5% of Taiwan's total international trade volume. Taiwan doesn't have any FTA with the US, Japan, mainland China, European Union, or even Southeast Asian countries. So actually, ECFA is now the most important agreement that the Taiwanese government is working on, so that on the basis of ECFA, maybe we can find some other venues to talk to Taiwan's major trading partners about the possibility of FTA. I'm not linking ECFA to Taiwan's FTA with other countries, but I'm saying that we are trying to find a channel to continue the talk about possible FTAs with some other countries through the signing of ECFA. And let me move on to Taiwan's relations. I would like to explain in brief Taiwan's rationales of its flags of diplomacy, FD. I think first, that's the way how the KMT government responds to the general public. Because over 90% of Taiwanese people called for a peaceful, diplomatic, and external environment for Taiwan. And Taiwanese people just don't want to play checkbook diplomacy anymore. Of course, I would have to say that not only Taiwan, but mainland China also played checkbook diplomacy to compete with each other in diplomacy. But now we don't want to play that game anymore. We would like to save our resources for our own people. And we would like to improve Taiwan's international image by avoid the strategy of checkbook diplomacy, and by providing more foreign aid and assistance through a proper and justified reasons. And also, by conducting flexible diplomacy, can cross-strait relations be improved? The reason is because, as you can tell, a lot of cross-strait tensions may have come from diplomatic struggles between Taipei and Beijing. If we can stay away those diplomatic struggles, I think there is a very big chance for us to improve cross-strait interactions, because diplomacy, at least we shelve our disputes, diplomatic disputes, and we work on the brighter side for the both sides of the Taiwan Strait. That's why when President Ma took office in May 2008, our government has called for flexible diplomacy. And the key measures of FD may include the following three. Diplomatic truce. Actually, diplomatic truce is a very difficult strategy for Taiwan because still some people in Taiwan are worried about the possible, the stealing strategy, quote unquote, stealing strategy of mainland China to steal Taiwan's diplomatic allies when Taiwan is undertaking the strategy of diplomatic truce. But I can say that in practice, we have seen a tacit understanding between Taipei and Beijing in diplomatic truce, because now, in terms of the number of diplomatic allies, both Taiwan and mainland China remain very, very stable. Taiwan has 23, while mainland China has, I guess, more than 170. But let's forget the diplomatic struggle and look at what we can do together to enhance the benefits of the people on the both sides of the strait. That's why President Ma called for diplomatic truce, and the PRC might have accepted implicitly. And the second important measure is to participate meaningfully in international events and organizations. Taiwan has been excluded in most of the mainstream international activities. With the so-called détente of cross-strait relations, we hope that Taiwan can participate at least some of the major international events and organizations so that Taiwan can make concrete contribution to the international community. A very sad story in this regard is that when there was a tsunami hitting Aceh, Indonesia, about 3 or 4 years ago, our government would like to donate some US dollars to Indonesia through the United Nations. But our donation got rejected by the UN, largely because Taiwan is not a member of the UN. So that's the political reality faced Taiwan, but we would like to break such a reality by improving cross-strait relations and then by making the PRC realize Taiwan's intent of helping the international community by giving more and by paying back. Because in the past, Taiwan had received a great deal of international assistance, especially from US, to stand up from the aftermath of the World War II. Now, I think it's high time for Taiwan to pay back, but we need to find the right timing and the right occasion to pay back without making our friends in the international community feel so uncomfortable. So I think the PRC should also realize this very critical point, that Taiwan's money, Taiwan's contribution can be accepted and received by those people in need. And the last condition, last measure of FD is to enhance substantive relations with major powers. Because major powers, especially the US, Japan, and probably EU, are the major backing of Taiwan's participation in international community. And we have put much emphasis on our relations with the US, Japan, EU, although the political barrier set up by the PRC are still there. But we try very hard to enhance some non-official relations with these countries so that our people's welfare and the rights can be protected by engaging with these major powers. So flexible diplomacy is actually nothing new, but we would like to reiterate our real intent of promoting FD for the well-being of Taiwanese people, and for the peace and stability of the Taiwan Strait, and for the comfort and easiness of our friends in the world. And my concluding remarks are that Taiwan's flexible diplomacy needs flexibility, creativity, and confidence building between Taipei and Beijing. So it's not easy. Being flexible is easy, but you need some creativity ways to be flexible and to conduct your foreign policy. Meanwhile, confidence building with Beijing is of great importance, because if Beijing doesn't trust Taipei, then the continued political and economic and military pressure from Beijing will make a lot of friends of Taiwan uncomfortable. And we don't want to make you feel that way. So we would like to talk to Beijing that let's undertake diplomatic truce, and let's go with flexible diplomacy. Let's shelve disputes and work together to enhance the benefits of the whole region. So political reconciliation is absolutely needed. But what is maybe more important is that Taiwan needs to garner a great deal of international backing and understanding to promote its flexible diplomacy. Quite a few friends from abroad coming to Taipei ask us, okay, about this issue, have you talked to Beijing? Has Beijing agreed? But I would argue that what we need more is your backing and understanding, because we don't want to talk to Beijing first, then seek your understanding and support. Taiwan's participation in the international community doesn't have to talk to Beijing first, because we need your support and understanding so that we can go back to the international community as one of the members. And Beijing's consent can be considered, but that's not the first condition, very first condition we want to take into account. And finally, I think what we have done here is for the mutual interests, not only between Taipei and Beijing, but also among countries concerned. That's why the US government, especially the Obama administration, has called for a peaceful development in the Taiwan Strait. And quite interestingly, the 1992 consensus was mentioned when President Obama and PRC President Hu Jintao talked over the phone, I think in 2008. That means 1992 consensus might have become one of the hidden or unspoken foundation for future development of cross-strait relations, favored not only by Taiwan, but also by the PRC and even the US. Okay, I think I've spoken long enough.